Welcome to the Global Speaker Advantage, the #1 podcast where your voice goes beyond borders. Hosted by Oliver Sham, international speaker and coach, this show is for speakers ready to grow influence, land paid gigs, and make a global impact. Tune in every Tuesday and Friday weekly for insights, interviews, and strategies to help you thrive on the world stage. Let's go global.
Hey. Hope you're doing
Hey,
pretty
hey.
good out there, wherever you are. And it's another exciting episode of the Global Speakers Advantage podcast. And I'm Oliver Shom, your host. And with me in the studio is a phenomenal global speaker far away from the Republic of South Africa. Hey, William Gauss, how are you?
I am doing well, thank you. Talking to you from a very cold Johannesburg evening, but very beautiful. And thank you for having me, and hello to everyone tuning in.
Beautiful. And special thanks to our viewers around the world. We're thinking about the viewers from United States here, viewers from Africa, of course, viewers from Singapore, like in Asia and in Europe. And thank you for tuning in. Wherever you're tuning in, let us know from YouTube, from Facebook, from LinkedIn, and of course, type on the comment section where you're watching us from and stay glued and as we dive deeper into the show. So a bit about our guest, which of course he's gonna say a little bit about that. Um, Entrepreneurial thinking expert. That's our guest for today. William is helping individuals, teams, business navigate disruption and uncertainty with resilience and resourcefulness. He is a trainer, a facilitator, a global speaker, an entrepreneur, coach, and of course, an author. So, William, what is your one word? Like, I love asking that. What is your one word? What's the one word that describes your business, your work, and your entire life?
Resourcefulness. I think
Resourceful.
that's the one word that defines my life. Resourcefulness. If you had to boil it down to one thing,
Okay. Why
it's always
resourcefulness?
finding a way. You know, I always say to people, Africa is rich in resources, and our people are resilient. Our poverty lies in our resourcefulness. And I found most people, when they're faced with a challenge, it's as if their creative brain goes like, we can't focus on that, and their resourcefulness disappears. And I always find a way. It's what can I do now, and what's next, and what can I achieve next. So it's I've been hit a lot in my life, like Mike Tyson said, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face. And although you won't say it from my face, but I've been punched quite a few times, and it's about how to find a way to flow forward. What's next? And I've
I love
always
that.
done that throughout my life.
I cannot wait as we dive deep to that story. And William, you are actually the second guest we are interviewing under the Global Speakers podcast brand from South Africa. Our first guest from South Africa was Tim Russo, top international speaker and one of my mentors. And today we are having you. And you're not just a speaker, a global speaker, but you are an entrepreneur. And I want you to tell us what mindset shifts are essential for entrepreneurs to not just survive, but thrive in a rapidly changing world.
That's a very good question, and I think let me give you some context around that.
Okay.
So my company, the Human Entrepreneur, we developed a recipe for job creation in Africa. So
Hmm.
I go into a township in South Africa. For those who are not familiar with it, it's a slum-like environment, a shanty town, little resources. It's not a nice place. And I
Hmm.
take an unemployed person, I get them to start a profitable business in 5 weeks without external funding. Any
Hmm.
business, industry, or sector, And I do that by changing their thinking.
mm,
Now, the one thing that I've noticed in South Africa, Botswana, Namibia, Kenya, Ghana, everything there is our biggest mindset shift that we need to do is our limiting beliefs.
mm,
Because the one thing that is holding the entrepreneurial potential of Africa back is our learned helplessness. I don't know, are you familiar with the term learned helplessness, Oliver? So,
that's my first time of hearing it.
okay, so for the audience, so I'm an old guy. You know, when I was a kid and I went to the circus still had animals. Now we're the animals, and I think it's more entertaining.
Mm,
And when they bought a new baby elephant, they would simply buy a dog collar, tie it to its leg, and tie that to a peg, and it can't escape. But they use that same dog collar when it's a full grown adult elephant. It can lift its leg and go like, bye bye, I'm out of this. But it doesn't because it has learned that it is helpless.
mm,
And working with thousands of entrepreneurs in Africa so far, our learned helplessness, and I've seen that reflected internationally in the United States, wherever I speak, the learned helplessness comes out. It's impossible to start a business if I don't have the dreaded F word, funding, access to market, and a business plan. And I go, you don't need any of those. Please don't waste my time. You don't need any of those to start.
mm.
And that's the biggest shift that we need around the world, and specifically in developing economies, is that shift that I can do this. Because I've had people in my class saying, I've been waiting 6 years for funding, and then they spend 30 minutes with me and go like, hang on. So
Come
you're
on.
saying I could have started 6 years ago? Like, absolutely. I'm like, damn. I'm like, yes, if only you had me in your life earlier. So that's the biggest mindset shift we need to make, as the human race, is to go, but I can think like an entrepreneur. I don't have to have all of these things, and I can start something today.
Okay. Okay.
Mm.
And that's really amazing. You know, like God created one world, one earth, and the people in the world, they've turned the world into like two to three different worlds. So we have the first world and the third world countries and the first world countries and the second world countries. And most of the time, most countries in Africa, they are always described as the third world country, not at time, not
Mm.
even the second world country. So why is it that the United States here is in the first world country, among the first world countries? Africa, countries like Cameroon, uh, um, Kenya, Ghana, they are described as countries in the third world country. I think South Africa is not left out. So, what do
Oh,
you
we're
think is a
edging
shift
towards third world. Yeah.
in mindset? What do you think is causing this nomenclature, this naming? What can you recommend as a disruptor that people that we call them in quote in the third world country should begin to do to bring that disruption, that shift, that they can actually be repositioned and rebranded as people in the part of the first world countries?
Well, there are many aspects and lenses through which you can view this, and I'm going to give my perspective from an entrepreneurial perspective and in entrepreneurial thinking. And the biggest challenge that we face, if you ask anybody in Africa what's the problem, they go, it's leadership.
Mm,
I go, yeah, okay, but what are you doing about it? It seems
mm,
like we're always shifting. Like if something goes wrong, we look out the window to point to somebody instead of
mm,
looking in the mirror and asking myself what I'm doing here. And I think if we really want to unlock the potential of Africa, and considering that by 2030, 45% of the global youth will be in Africa. If we want to unlock the potential of Africa and its people, is we need to instill that internal locus of control, that I can change my own things. Because people sit there and they come, yeah, but the government this, but the leaders this, but the, okay, what are you doing about it? What can you change? Because if you apply entrepreneurial thinking and you look at a community, they have all the knowledge, probably all the resources and everything else, and the manpower to solve most of their problems anyway. And they're more geared to solve their own problems because they're closer to it and they understand it better. And that's what we need is that internal locus of control to show the people of Africa and other developing economies to go, but you can do this. And through my process, like I said, what we do with unemployed people in these townships in 5 weeks, simply by changing their thinking. I don't teach, I kick out lean startup. That needs to be kicked out of Africa with immediate effect. So
Mm.
that's what I teach. And that's the power of entrepreneurial thinking, is it instills that locus of control. And you go, hang on,
Mm-hmm.
I'm in control. I don't have to fear the future. I can create something.
Mm.
And that's beautiful to see.
Mm. I love that. Yeah, of
Thank
course. Yeah, it's beautiful, and the population of Africa should be over 1.3 billion, 1.2 to 1.3 billion people. So it's possible, so possible with a very high GDP, like across the different 54 countries, over 54 countries in Africa. So let's look at it. So William, you're not only a speaker, you're so deep and highly rooted into the business world. So can you share with us an experience, a scenario that you encountered in your business that everything almost fell apart, but you were able to develop systems using your experience that you stayed on the lane and you are thriving and you kept on thriving? Is there an experience where you were at the verge of losing everything and eventually you
so
did something and it connected some dots and clicked some buttons and some things happen and that makes you to be what you are today?
so I have a tattoo of a phoenix on my forearm because I've destroyed myself 4 times now. I've had to
Oh my
start
God.
over 4 times.
Wow.
And the last one was November. I was in 2020 during the lockdown. So all my speaking gigs got cancelled.
Oh my
I'm a
God.
single father. The day before lockdown, my son and I moved out of the house,
Hmm.
because only 4% of men get custody of their kids in South Africa. I was so focused on making sure that's going to happen. I had one client left and they paid me and I had money to move, but I didn't have money for the end of the month.
Hmm.
So as lockdown started, I had to start a new business
Hmm.
during lockdown. And I had a 2-year plan to be out of debt, have cash in the bank, take my son on a month-long holiday, and
Hmm.
I did it in 6 months
Wow.
by
So how did you do
applying
that?
the things that I teach. So everything that I teach, I wouldn't teach anything if I haven't lived it myself.
Hmm.
And
I
what
love
I
that.
did there is I did what I'd say, being a business and entrepreneur coach,
Hmm.
probably now for 10, 12 years, working with people globally. One thing that I have found as is almost universal is that business owners, especially new entrepreneurs, are consistently inconsistent.
Hmm.
Um, Oliver, if I had to ask you, here I have a 5-month-old baby and I give it good food and it's full and I burp it and it falls asleep. So I fed this baby good food. So it should be okay if I don't feed it for another 3 days. I'll feed it by Saturday. Would you do that? You wouldn't because
Yeah.
it's a baby. You know,
Yeah.
It's not going to end well. We don't have to explore that.
Mhm.
But how many of us give our business a little bit of marketing, a little bit of sales here and there? And you're like, I don't know why my baby is dying. And you go like, yes, because you're consistently inconsistent. So what I did is I was consistent. I sat down, I couldn't network, I couldn't go and see people. So I had one channel. I had 7,000 LinkedIn connections and
Mm,
I emailed people. I didn't copy and paste. I didn't
mm,
go an AI route. I didn't automate it. I didn't build a funnel because you can feel, Oliver, tell me, you can feel when somebody wrote you a message or if they copied and pasted it. You can feel it in that energy. As a
yep.
firewalking instructor, I'm very attuned into energies. And I emailed some people, some 4,000 people. And all that I sent was, hey, Oliver, life is very challenging. What are you doing? How may I be of help? Let me know. This is what I'm doing. If you know of anybody, would you mind introducing me?
Mm,
And I just did that 3 to 4 hours a day. I actually had burnout during lockdown
mm,
where my son said to me, dude, you need to take a weekend off and just sleep. And I'm like, I think
mm,
so too. And that's what happened. And it went and I pushed and I pushed. And I remember one Friday morning, it was like, because I don't sleep with an alarm, I usually start anything from 2:30 in the morning. That's my normal starting time. Usually I start 3:30 in the mornings. 5 o'clock in the morning, I got this message from a CEO, from somebody who introduced me to them, and they said to me, "We have been looking for work that like yours, and we couldn't find it. And I can't wait to have a meeting with you and my whole team and explore how we can work together."
mm,
And I just burst out in tears. They sitting, and I just weep, and I get like, I did it. And that's when because it's building that momentum. Um,
mm.
I don't know if you ever had the displeasure of having to push start the car. I think most people go through that experience
Yeah,
sometime
I've
in
done
their
that.
life. But in the beginning, you push, and it's hard, and that thing doesn't
Oh,
move. But
mhm,
once it rolls, you can keep 2 fingers on it, and the car will
mm,
keep rolling.
mm,
And that's the problem with businesses.
mm,
People push, push. Oh, this is hard. And then they take a break, and then they push, push. Oh, this is hard. And they're like, I don't know why my cars are going nowhere. And you're like, because
mm,
you're consistently inconsistent. And that's our
mm,
biggest challenge that we face.
mm.
Mm.
Man, you hit that very hard. I love that. I love
Thank
that.
you.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So, um, there is always a way out for those who really believe. There is absolutely always a way out, and
Mm.
that experience was a brilliant one there, Williams. Okay, moving forward. So you are a speaker, and let's look at, you know, this podcast. We actually we have conversations with top international speakers and global speakers from all around the world, and just because before we continue with that conversation, there is kind of stuff we do here, a little bit like the passport game, and being you've spoken around the world. So you're gonna share with us kind of three things that you always have in your bag, you know, you you know, anytime you're traveling to speak. Three things that you can't travel without anytime you are getting off for a speaking gig.
Okay,
Number one,
cool. When I go to a speaking gig, um, I always have a change of clothing. I
okay,
always have a fresh change of clothing because somebody
okay,
can walk past you with a cup of coffee,
yep,
something happening, who knows? And then you're standing there, you're like, this is not working. So I always have a change of clothing in
mm-hmm.
my bag wherever I speak.
Hmm,
And then floss. I never go anywhere without floss because you quickly have a snack. And speakers, we're looking for
mm-hmm.
something to sustain you and quickly, and you have a nut, and then that nut sits in your tooth, and you're and it distracts you from everything else.
Yeah.
Okay, so always have that in, and throat lozenges, because some days, I speak. I started 3 o'clock this morning. It is 9:30 at night now. This
Mm,
is my last meeting for the day, and then I'm starting working. And most days I have, and just before this, I did 2 hours of teaching for a
mm,
university.
mm,
So the voice takes strain, and you have to take that. So those three things: change of clothing,
mm-hmm.
floss, and throat lozenges. Don't leave home without it.
I love that. That's so beautiful. And on the flip side, so do you want to share with us, we have a growing audience, especially from Africa and the US, aspiring speakers, huge audience listening to us right now. And you want to share with us maybe three things you did, maybe one thing that you did as a speaker on the stage that you regretted doing that, and two things that you did on the stage that were game changing for you, kind of game changer.
Okay. So one thing when you lost the audience is if somebody asks a question and you reply, you don't understand. And as those words came out of my mouth, I went like, oh goodness, I just lost the room. I just lost the room.
Okay.
Because you have to understand the audience is not there to understand. The audience is there to feel understood.
Mm,
And that I did not give them time for me to understand so that they felt understood, so that
mm,
I can be of better service to them as a speaker.
mm.
And that was a rookie mistake. There was and I left that venue with 2 slices of humble pie.
Okay.
The other one, great things. It was my best and worst speaking experience rolled into one. I had a dead audience of 400 people.
Oh my gosh.
30 minutes, and all the previous speakers experienced the same thing. Everything. They were just sitting like that.
Mm,
I could crack a joke. I could get naked and do cartwheels. Nobody would go like, hmm, nothing. And you had to perform for 30 minutes.
mm,
And it was the worst and best experience, because the nice thing is they don't accept anything you give them, so you can do anything. And it led to absolute freedom. But my favorite um, was um, I was in Kuala Lumpur facilitating a session
mm,
uh, with 100 CEOs, and nobody introduces you because I'm doing somebody else's program. So it's
mm,
not like, hi, this is Willem Gous, and he's a big author of a book, and he's there and everything else. And I just walk up at stage and I go, hi, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Underneath your chair, there's a Ziploc bag. Please proceed by switching your mobile phone off and sealing it in the bag. You can access it in 4 hours. I give you 30 seconds, and you
mm,
have to hold that room. Because if I go in weak and go like, hey guys, please, they're going to eat me alive. If I go in
mm.
cocky, like, hey, listen up, my room, my rules, they're going to, hey, we do that for breakfast. So I had to meet them at CEO level. And that
Mm,
to date was one of my best.
mm. Wow. And everybody did that.
Say again.
Like everybody that when they actually put down their phones and zip up.
Yeah. And they did.
Wow. I love
Yeah.
that. That was brilliant. That was a good one. I love that. So you talked about a cold audience. people we have all around the world as they're listening to us right now, what recommendations, what suggestion can you give to our listeners right now who are aspiring speakers on how to manage a cold audience, like a dead audience, irrespective of the size? It could be personal level experience situations like that. It could be 100, it could be 50, it could be 400, it could be 1,000. So, what are the three things you can do as a speaker to innovate? When you
That's a very
say
good
that,
question. Yeah.
yeah,
In most cases you can't. You're done for.
okay,
But you can
mm,
lead into participation.
okay,
Always have my hand up by show of hands, and how many of you? And I said, this hand can select as well. And
mm,
I'll go up to somebody. Hey, thank you for raising your hand. This person will like, what?
mm,
And get that going. So you can amp up that energy. I think the biggest thing that you need to focus on is that this is not about you. You're there to serve. And I always tell, especially young aspiring speakers, even experienced ones, I tell them it doesn't matter what I said or didn't say. It doesn't matter what I did or didn't do. I served.
mm,
And I will leave that stage knowing I gave my best.
mm,
Um, because I've seen that as a firewalking instructor. So I'm a certified firewalking instructor.
mm,
Sometimes people will call me 3 years later and said, I did that firewalk with you. I listened to that speech that you delivered there. And now 3 years later, it changed my life. And I want to thank you for that. So
mm,
don't fall into that trap of thinking that things need to happen now.
mm,
You're there to serve, give it there. Sometimes the message lands, sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes it lands much later on. And I found that to be the case time and time again.
mm. Wonderful. Yeah, you mentioned you're a firework instructor, and um I got fired up hearing that. Like, I remember in 2023, I was in South Africa for my firework instructor training with Cobos Visa hikings. So,
Mm.
it's such a great thing to know that you're a firework instructor. All right. So, let's wear your entrepreneurship cap again. I want to find out from you, what are the practical things that you can recommend to entrepreneurs they can start to do right now to stay ahead of the curve in uncertainty in their businesses, in their innovations, be it speakers, entrepreneurs, or just maybe
Yeah.
the serial entrepreneurs.
So the key thing, and one thing that I found, because I have manufacturing experience, I have my master's in IT, I've been in online for 29 years, and I've won awards in the creative industry as well. So I coach and mentor across all sectors and industries and businesses. The fact that you have a business,
Mm,
it's usually just I have a skill and I started the business to monetize the skill.
okay.
Even some successful startup founders haven't created that entrepreneurial thinking that is required to move forward. And I'm not getting into, please don't misunderstand me, that this is a conversation of you are an entrepreneur or not. Uh, I treat entrepreneurship as a learnable skill. Anybody, everybody can learn it. It's just like leadership, but there's a specific way of thinking. And the first thing is adaptability. See, it's about changing plans, not falling in love, going, it's okay. We tell people, how many times have you fallen in love with the one? I'm going to marry this person. Then a year later, where's that person? Who? Oh no, I found this one. I'm going to marry this one. Okay. You will always find another person to love. You will always have another business. So if this
Mm,
business is abusive and not nice to you, adapt, get a new one, move on. And that's also the other thing, is what I refer to as bounce back ability.
mm,
Is you're going to get slapped in the face consistently. I always tell entrepreneurs, Entrepreneurship is similar to juggling jelly. And if it doesn't feel like you're juggling jelly, you're missing something. You're going to get a slap soon. And it's that bounce back ability when things go wrong. Either you sit there and say, I'm blocked, or you find a way to flow forward. And that is the other skill that you need to learn is to flow forward. So I'm a big fan of the Tao Te Ching, and most people will say, "Oh, Bruce Lee said that." Yeah, but the Tao Te Ching did it 3,000 years before. Water is soft, yet it cuts through the landscape and creates valleys and mountains. But if you block water, it goes over, under, left, or right, and it's always finding a way. So how can you always be like water? So adaptability, bounce back ability, and flowing forward. And then it's the resourcefulness.
Mm,
You will, when you speak to youth and people, they will always complain about what I don't have to start a
mm,
business. I don't have this and I don't have that. And I go like, have you ever seen a child sit and play with Lego blocks and go like, Uncle Oliver, do you have the instructions? A child will never ask you that. They
mm.
will just build a plane, then a rocket ship, then a house. Okay. So be
Yeah.
like water and awaken your inner Lego playing child and become resourcefulness. And lastly is that internal locus of control. Either you're blaming, you're a victim of circumstance, or you're the captain of your own destiny. And that
Mm,
is a decision that you make. As long as you blame somebody, you're not moving forward. You're not flowing forward. You're stagnating. You're getting mosquitoes, and it's going to be not nice water. It's going to get diseased.
mm,
Move on. Yeah. So that internal locus of control is cream of the crop, but the most
mm,
difficult. Mm.
mm. Right. That's deep, right? And somebody says something very interesting the other day. When you blame others for your problems, for the things and for the issues that are disturbing you, you are denying yourself the responsibility to bring the change that you want to see. And I really feel that in that you said. That's so really
Yeah.
powerful.
So something I always teach people is say, not everything is your fault, but
Mm,
100% of everything is your responsibility.
mm,
A lot of
that is
people
it.
shy away. I don't want to hear that. They're like, well, stay in your fantasy
Mm,
or move forward in reality. That's your choice.
yeah, that is it. And okay, listening to us right now, we have young people with great $1 million dreams and $1 billion dreams and $1 trillion dreams, great initiatives, ideas, concepts. So what have you been able to do as an entrepreneur in raising capital? When we started this conversation, you talked about I actually love your mindset about how to raise
Yeah.
capital. Like money is not the real thing, and you don't wait for 6 months, 1 year, 6 years waiting for capital to begin that business. In fact, if that was the case, we could have been here in the studio today. You know,
Yeah.
so what is your approach? What is your framework? What's your model to raise capital to start up the ventures that you're pivoting right now?
So first thing I do when I start something is I pick up the phone. Go like, hey, do you have this? So in one of the areas that I helped an unemployed person start a business, this lady has a bakery. She does scones and biscuits, but she doesn't own an oven,
Okay.
but she has a bakery. Most
Hmm.
people go like, oh, she needs premises, industrial ovens. You're like, no, you need a phone. I'll go like, Oliver, hey, Kazlam, do you have an oven? You're like, you do. Nice. Can I bake at your house? Not. Okay, fine. Do you know somebody else with an oven? So she walks to her sister's house, 10 minutes away, bakes, takes a taxi to the rank, sells, and that's how it starts spooling it up. Now,
Hmm.
as entrepreneurs with bigger dreams, please
Hmm.
let go of that. These people with, I want to have a unicorn. Please, unicorns are a waste of time. Move on.
Mm.
Okay. There's only 3,500 billionaires in the world anyway. The odds of
Mm.
you getting there is like walking in the middle of Africa and a piece of fish falling in your head. It's not going to happen. So,
Like,
number one, get out of your fantasy.
okay.
One thing that I've seen people sit in my class with the most boring ideas. Now, I'm going to have a Lamborghini Aventador in the next 3 years. I'm like, no, you're not. I can guarantee you that. And what I found working with entrepreneurs in Africa, and I'm talking from the unemployed slum like environments to guys working at partnership level at international consultancies, they all live in a fantasy of what they can achieve in the short term. And then once you unpack it, they go, oh my word, this is not it. So, number one, let go of the $1 billion fantasy. Start with something and see where it goes. And if it doesn't go well, kill it. Do something new and see where that goes. And if that
Mm.
doesn't go well, kill it. And if you want to get it started, all that you need to do is assemble a value chain to get that value flowing. You don't necessarily have to own it. Like one guy came, yeah, I have this new energy drink and I need funding for a bottling plant. I said, call a guy who has a bottling plant, ask him, is he running at 100% capacity? If not, ask him if you can buy 10% of his capacity for 2 days. Do a run, see if you can sell it. There we go.
Mm.
Once you have proof that it's working, that's great. So now I'm expanding my business into a different overseas market. This company has about 7,000 customers. So what we're doing now is we're going to have webinars to test the temperature with their audiences. And they go like, ooh, we like this. This is quite
Mm.
nice. And then we might have more specific webinars around that to test temperatures around that. And then I will fly there for a week and then we'll go to 8 different cities, put people in a room. I do a keynote about entrepreneurial thinking and how you can use that in your business, in your corporate to outlearn and out earn your competitors.
Mm.
And then we can sell to them on their sales team. Do you see how I de-risk it? Do you see how I create demand first? Because here's the problem, Oliver. The biggest mistake you can make when you start a business is to build a business. Never, ever, ever, ever build a business.
Mm.
Yes, build a customer book.
Okay.
I always tell people, don't buy the bus. So now you're going to start a touring company. I'm going to put people in a bus. We're going to drive an African guy. Ooh, lion, zebra stuff. The typical
Yep.
touristy stuff in Africa.
Mm-hmm.
But what's the first thing they do? They go and buy a bus. Now I have a bus, liabilities, sleepless nights and worries, and you don't have a single tourist. I'm like, no,
Mm.
find tourists, fill the bus, enough to fill a bus, and then you hire the bus. And if you can consistently fill the bus, consider buying the bus. So
Mm.
now people who are familiar with my work will go like, Willem, I bought the bus 5 times before. They're like, ooh, how did that turn out? Yeah, I have no money to show for anything anymore. I said, yes, you shouldn't have bought the bus. I said, if only I knew you, I would not have bought the bus.
Yeah. Wow.
Hmm.
What a mistake.
So,
Cool, bro.
no.
So, looking at the life of Elon Musk is one of the richest guys in the world. Elon Musk, after he started his company, um, that was Tesla. So he was very successful in Tesla, and um, he started working on SpaceX. And at some point, he had some major failures and breakdowns in his business. After he tested the spaceship the first time, it did not work. Second time, it did not work. Third time, it did not work. And he had pressure, like almost everybody in his network was like, Elon, let go the SpaceX. Focus on Tesla. You see, you're already becoming successful in Tesla. Why do you want
Mm.
to stress yourself and all of that? And Elon Musk said something I will never forget. If I read this from his autobiography, and he said, "What do you do when you have two children? Let's assume you have twins, and you have food to feed only one, and the other one. Do you allow the other one starve to dirt, or you have to figure out how you have to feed the two kids?" And that
Mm.
reminds me why he was so resilient, dedicated, committed to the SpaceX mission. And guess what? The fourth time, he spent again over 20 billion US dollars in that project. And boom, he got it right. And just
Mm.
from that project, he had a contract from NASA that they paid him over 20 billion US dollars for that
Yeah.
particular contract. First contract after the spaceship launch was
Oh, well,
successful.
that was what
So
he was chasing. Yeah.
what do you have to say to such a person, maybe the future Elon Musk or whoever, listening to us right now, on why you have to be committed, consistent, and focused to what you believe that will work? Do you have anything to
Um,
say about that?
yeah. I would not have done that. I'm a big fan of quitting, giving up, kill it.
Mm-hmm.
One thing in my programs when I work with people, and they come in and say, you know what, I tested that business, didn't work, so I'm killing it. And then we celebrate. We're like, yeah.
Oh my God.
Because most people, would you stay in an abusive relationship, Oliver?
I would say,
No.
well, it depends.
Good God. Okay, that's a different discussion we'll take off air. But
Absolutely.
but the thing is, um, most of us at some point in our life have let
Mm,
go of a personal or intimate relationship, and our life is much better today as a result of that.
mm,
And the result is even better when you let go of an abusive business. And it's
mm,
not necessarily that it's a bad, maybe it's not the business now.
mm.
And I'm a big fan of, you know, marry slowly, divorce fast. So
Okay.
slowly get into this business, just like
Mm.
I explained how I'm getting into that international market.
Yep.
But if it doesn't work, I'll cut it off and go, and they will do the same. And it's
Okay.
not that I'm going to drop a partner. We'll just say, well, okay, it's not sticking, and we'll
Mm,
try. It's not you tweak, try this, there a little bit, but you have to. Most entrepreneurs go down that route unconsciously, and they
okay.
do the same stupid thing for 2 or 3 years in a row. Like, I don't know why this business is not working. They're like, "Ah, yeah, because you're doing the same stupid thing for 3 years."
Yeah.
And that's why, even as a I was voted Startup Mentor of the Year 2023. Even on that level of coaching and mentorship that I do and training, I have my own coach. I have mentors. I have advisors. Because
Mm,
one thing that most entrepreneurs don't like sales. But oh
okay.
my word, Oliver, are we brilliant at selling a bad idea to ourselves?
Mm.
We go like, oh, this is gonna work. I know. Nothing can make this fail. And you're like, yeah, it's gonna end up bad. Yeah, it's gonna
Okay,
blow up in your
William.
face.
So
Yeah.
so let's look at this, man. That's interesting. So, what do you? I know people listening to us right now. They want to know. So William, when is the right time to quit? When is the right time to end it? When is the right time to say no? It's enough. This is over with that idea, with that business venture. Maybe you also want to guide our audience know when. How do you know that it's not going to work, and when is the right time to quit? Yeah.
That is a near impossible question to answer.
Okay.
It's a personal thing. So when you start that business, you have to make a decision by yourself. If this, then that. So by this time, I want this business to have achieved this.
Mm-hmm.
And that needs to get to a decision point. When you get there, then you go, okay, is it a go or no go? Am I going to innovate, kill, or keep and start something else?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because polygamy is allowed in business. I can have many. Okay, and that's the thing is most entrepreneurs just go into the business. If I just do everything, if I just work hard, you've heard that. Just work hard and you'll be successful. If that was true, donkeys would be the richest people on earth.
Mm,
So hard work does not pay off
mm,
if you're not effective. And that's the thing is have a decision point. Like I was meeting with I work with other entrepreneurs and we have 90-day goals because if it's just, yeah, I want to achieve this, it turns into these meetings of, hey, what's happening? This. No, 90 days.
mm-hmm.
Dude, you're like 20 days away and you've only achieved 40%. What are you doing about it? What are
Mm,
you doing? And it's about bringing, as an entrepreneur, you need two things to be successful: consciousness and control. You need to be conscious of what's happening,
mm,
conscious of am I going to go ahead or not, and control is how am I controlling this. And
okay,
if you exercise those two, consciousness and control, then you will know when to quit.
I love that. So what happens when you've set a 90 days uh time frame? You're already on the 90-day, but you are not getting the result that
Mm.
you as anticipated to have, but you still believe, you still feel like there is hope if I exceed maybe 200 days.
Excuse me. Hope belongs in church. Hope is not a strategy. Okay.
Okay.
Never been, never will. Why I have that is everything leads to a conversation. So if you're pushing it and it's not working, it
Yeah.
needs to lead to a conversation.
Oh.
Conversation with self, conversation with you and your business. What's the reason we're not getting the results?
Hmm.
What am I doing that's making this fail? What am I doing that's making this work? If you
Hmm.
achieve your result, it leads to a
Hmm.
conversation. If you shoot the lights out, it definitely leads to a conversation because I want to know what did I do because I want to keep doing that stuff. And
Hmm.
that's the problem. As an entrepreneur, every day you need to do three things: management, business development, and sales. Management is like a guy digging a ditch next to a road. And
Hmm.
after each meter, he lifts his head and go like, okay, am I still straight? Nice. Dig another meter. Cool. Is this going? Nice.
Hmm.
And if not, he adjusts. Business development. Stand on the tops of mountains and shout to the world what you do. And number
Hmm.
three is sales. Marketing is not sales. Marketing is getting dressed up, putting up nice perfume, going to a nightclub, go like, hey, how you doing? Sales is walking up to that person and go like, may I have your number, please? And that's the scary part. But those three things you need to do every day in your business.
Hmm. Development, marketing, and sales. I love that. So, if you were to go back to your 21 years vision or self, and you needed to advise yourself, what advice would you give to your 21 years self, William, about business and the business of speaking in general?
So, business of speaking. Ooh, that's a nice one.
Hmm.
And because I coach and mentor younger speakers, and I also coach other speakers,
Hmm.
and many of them still haven't learned this lesson. It's not about you. The
Hmm.
audience is not there for you. The audience is not there for your beautiful voice, although I've
Hmm.
met speakers who
Egos.
freaking beautiful. They're not there for your mind, they're there
Hmm.
for themselves.
Hmm.
And you are there to serve. I've spoken in large audiences. Smallest audience I've spoken to, 3 people. I was there to serve, and I served them to the best of my ability.
Mm.
And that's the important thing is it's not about you, it's about them.
Mm.
Mm.
I think that's very cool. I wrote an article, one of my LinkedIn newsletter. I think that of Monday, last Monday. I wrote something related to that, and just last evening I wrote an article on Facebook. I shared on
Mm.
LinkedIn about the importance of serving. Speakers should see themselves as servants, serving the audience with respect, with brevity, with integrity. I talked about the importance of not talking so much about your family. You know, William, how many times have you listened to speakers and you really feel like they're not doing what they were supposed to be doing? They talk so much about their wealth, they talk so much about their investments, they talk so much about their wife, their children, they talk so much about their husband, their children, they talk so much about, the
Okay.
number of countries they have spoken in and all of that. And again, the time is winding, and yet people are not getting the value they were there for it. And I don't
There's a
they
term for that.
okay.
There's a term for that. It's an eye specialist.
Okay.
I have done this. I've achieved this. I
Mm,
do this. And I'm so great at this.
mm,
So, are you an eye specialist? Be
mm,
careful of that one. And
mm,
I was at a massive event late last year, and one of the young speakers was an eye specialist, and people walked
mm,
out there. Even during his talk, people started walking out and said, "What a
mm.
waste of my time!" Because all he's
Yeah.
just like, yeah. Because if you look at my programs, I have other trainers teaching my work in entrepreneurial thinking, but to qualify to be trained as a trainer, you have to be an entrepreneur who've built a successful business and
Mm,
destroyed it yourself. If you haven't destroyed your own business, I don't want to talk to you
mhm.
because
And
then
what
you're
do you
going to
mean?
be an eye specialist and cocky.
Oh, I
You know?
get you. Wow, pretty good. So yeah, I think that's becoming the big problem in the speaking industry. And for instance, in this part of the world, like you do that in the US, people would turn you off. I don't know what is happening in Africa right now, but you don't do that here. And it's a very sensitive environment of speaking, and need to be so sensitive what you say, how you say it, and all of that. Good.
Mm.
So, what is your maybe our younger people from around the world listening to us? What is your maybe your last hour advice or recommendation? I don't want to really put it advice, like recommendation, suggestion on how they can build thriving businesses, be it from the corporate level, at the level of the entrepreneurship, and be in the speaking industry as entrepreneur speakers
Yeah.
in relation to the AI, because we're in a fast changing
Yes.
world right now, and AI is
Mm.
the talk of the day, automation, innovation. How can they be able
So,
to thrive despite all that is happening around the world?
so, and that's my mission. So my personal mission is
Mm,
to prepare the human race to live in a disruptive world using entrepreneurial thinking.
okay.
Because the disruption is not coming, it's here. We've lost millions of jobs already. And most speakers are people with skills delivering training and talks.
Yeah.
They haven't developed entrepreneurial thinking, and it's about developing the right mindset. Even with this is my latest book, Side Hustle Success. We do a 3-hour talk in schools, universities, and communities, and that's our base where we teach entrepreneurial thinking.
Okay.
And it's not about, because on the one end people say AI and automation, robotics, it's just a tool. Don't worry. On the other end, we're dead. It's not going to end well for us. And everybody's looking for that how in the middle. How do I bridge this? How do I navigate uncertainty?
Hmm.
And the best thing there is to have an entrepreneurial thinking is internal locus of control,
Hmm.
your adaptability, your ability to let go. Adaptability is let go ability to say, okay, that's fine, next. That's fine, next. Okay, this didn't work, next. Move on to the next one.
Mm,
Flow forward, be like water.
mm,
Okay. And then also your bounce back ability.
mm.
How
I love that
long
word.
do you take to stand up after a shot in the face? I had, because I teach what I entrepreneurial thinking to financial advisors. There's one guy, if he got a bad phone call, it would put him back for 2 days. After my training, we got it down to about 20 minutes.
Oh.
2 days he would take time to recover from that. And now that changed everything. And it's not about, I see artificial intelligence. AI is not artificial intelligence.
Mhm.
It's augmented imagination.
Okay.
And that's what I do, is I help you use entrepreneurial thinking. Because you're
Mhm.
not, a lot of speakers and coaches go like, I'll just learn more. And I'm like, dude, you're going to learn more than a machine. You're not going to win this race. It's about the augmentation
Mm,
of you. How do we accelerate you? And you can only do that once you master entrepreneurial thinking. Because what's the one thing that a lot of people don't talk about entrepreneurship? Everybody, it's a lonely journey, and it is lonely as hell.
mhm,
Oh, the lone wolf theory that I go, entrepreneurs do nothing unless they do it through other people,
mm,
and they build relationships. And
mhm,
that's the power. And that relationship can be with others, can be with networks, could be with AIs.
mhm,
It's just the same world in a different environment. And how do you adapt to that? And that's why it's so critical for the world to learn entrepreneurial thinking. Even though you're a business owner, even if you're a speaker,
mhm,
you're a student, if you're an employee, whatever the case, learn entrepreneurial thinking, because you can apply it in life, in your relationship, and even in business.
mm. So
Mm.
brilliant. Tell me a little bit. That's kind of my last question to you. Even as we close the curtains of this conversation, um, character and integrity is very important to build for scale, and you definitely need to have a certain level of integrity. You say this is what you're gonna do, and you do it, and you have a track record of doing that. Why do you
Mm.
think character and integrity and maybe excellence are some very skills that entrepreneurs who want to scale, entrepreneurs and speakers who want to really go global, then they need to possess those skills. And anyone who's lacking those things have to start working to put them right.
Well, integrity is a difficult thing, especially when you look at your bank account and you see zeros and cobwebs. It's tough. And luckily, at my age, I had earlier this year a client, and they were just stuffing around, and it was a big contract, a really big contract. And I looked at it, and I said to my friend, if they don't, I give them 24 hours. If they don't sort it out in 24 hours, I'm walking away.
Mm,
And that would set me back financially 6 months,
mm,
proper cash. And he said, really? I was like, yes, because this is not the relationships that I have. This is not how I work. And this is not how I want other people to work with me. Because be careful of what you tolerate. You're teaching people how
mm,
to treat you.
perfect.
And that's why people move out of integrity, because you look at the bank statement, you look at the pressures, and it's difficult. And one thing that I found, the moment you let go, things flow.
Mm,
And as soon as I went like, I'm going to walk away, I'll find something else. I'll flow forward. I'll recover. I've done this before. Lo and behold, next day, lunchtime, done and dusted. We're starting the next day. Go like, love it. Nice. Thank you for playing. But that
mm,
would not have happened, I believe, if I was not ready to walk away. So, yes, I think develop the skill to walk away and not be needy, because then you're serving yourself and your client.
Mm.
Because by not helping them in that environment is also helping them. Mm.
Thank you, William. That means a lot to us. And um, how can people contact you? And maybe you just want to let us know how somebody watching right now want to contact you. What is the kind of keynotes you do these days, and then how can people reach out to you to book you for their for events and
Thank you
like
very much. Yes.
yeah.
So I focus on entrepreneurial thinking because it's not just for startups, it's a critical life skill anyone and everyone must learn to
Mhm.
survive this disrupted world. So some of my keynotes is finding your rhythm of success and how to instill entrepreneurial thinking to have consistency and results. And you can teach that to general staff, to entrepreneurs. It works everywhere. And then outlearn and out earn your competitors, how to increase the speed of learning within your business through entrepreneurial thinking to outlearn and out earn your competitors. And then I have a keynote, the accelerated advisor, which is for financial advisors, but it's for sales teams as well. So I teach the same entrepreneurial thinking that I do in these townships with financial advisors. And they guys who never achieve target like 50, 60%, they do my training. A month later, 2 months later, they're doing 150, 180% of target consistently from there, and they never stop. And so, yes, I'm taking that to the world is to how do we get entrepreneurial thinking through everything. So, if you want a specific topic and industry, talk to me. I was talking at Rail Africa this last week on how we can unlock a rail renaissance through entrepreneurial thinking. And yeah, the industries need this. The more I talk to people about the need for entrepreneurial thinking, everybody goes like, we need this now because you have the how.
Mhm.
Yes. And they
Okay.
can reach me on LinkedIn. Just
Okay.
search for Willem Gous, the human entrepreneur on LinkedIn. Find me, talk to me, and or you can go to thehumanentrepreneur.org and you can see everything there as well, and
Great.
videos of the work that I do. Yes.
Thank you so much, William Gertz, for your time and for being a guest
Thank
at the
you.
Global Speakers Advantage podcast. And we are so blessed and grateful for having you here. So, again, I want to thank William. So, we have two Williams today. William, this podcast is actually produced by the podcast crew, Minnesota, United States of America, and the engineer, the sound technician, the person behind the screens, the camera is not any other person but William Lacroix. And I want to say thank you so much, William, for always being there for the production of this podcast. So,
I
to our
thank him as well.
listeners, yeah, so we had two Williams today. So to our listeners, thank you for watching and for always being faithful to listening all around the world, from Africa, from Singapore, from United States, from Europe, wherever you're listening to us. Remain blessed, and we're looking forward to see you again in the next episode coming up. Everything being equal on Friday. Signing up from United States. God bless you. Bye
Thank
bye.
you.